In my opinion, there are two magical ingredients that go into making the experience of playing retro games extremely pleasurable. The first ingredient is the retro game you are playing, and the second is the device you're playing the retro game on. And as such, the guys at BITTBOY have perfectly mixed those two ingredients together to make what has to be the most desirable retro handheld currently available for sale in the PocketGo S30. I mean, look at it. It's an absolutely beautiful console, taking clue on the Super Nintendo controller to make what has to be a very attractive device. Now, when this device first came out, the reviews were not great, but I genuinely believe that the device that I have in my hands is very different from the device that we had 6 months ago, and here is why. The first issue that people had was the build quality, and I have to say I was really surprised because as soon as I unboxed this item and touched it, it did not feel like the earlier reviews. For example, the biggest issue that the earlier reviewers had, if the camera can focus, had to do with the shoulder buttons. If you look here, you will see that there is no gap when pressing the trigger buttons. This used to be an issue on the earlier model. People such as Retro Games Corp and even Retro Dodo made a video showing how the dust could easily get into the trigger section, but here on my reviewing it, it's definitely not the case. They actually feel really good, and I have to say, out of all the devices that I currently have, this has to be the best arrangement of shoulders and trigger buttons. You can see here they've taken some design cue from the Nintendo Switch. So basically you have the best of the Nintendo lineup, you know, the Super Nintendo controller with the Nintendo Switch style shoulder and trigger buttons. I also really like the hard plastic. It makes the device really solid. Joystick, D-pad, buttons, even the start and select buttons are really great to touch. And one other complaint about this device when it first came out was the shake test. So the guys at Retro Dodo and SWPL Gaming did a shake test that showed that the internals were moving around a lot.
Just listen. That's the battery inside just shaking about, and it's very loose.
And I actually did the shake test when I received my unit, and barely no noise whatsoever. It's super silent, so it really makes me feel like this device has definitely been updated. Now, I've reached to the guys at BITTBOY to ask for clarification, just to see if this was indeed an updated unit, but I guess I'm a tiny YouTube channel with about 100 subscribers, so they didn't give so they didn't reply essentially. But yeah, you know, a lot of the issues that were mentioned on the earlier units are not present here. Now, there is one that has persisted, and that has to be the hardware buffer on the buttons, and you can see that clearly on the game Metal Slug. Basically what it is when you press the buttons repeatedly, it doesn't fire as fast as you are actually pressing the buttons. If you look at the RG351P and the PocketGo S30, you will see that it's much slower to fire on the S30, but in my experience it didn't really damage my experience with this device that much. So games like Metal Slug or a lot of the shoot 'em up games, they actually gives you major power-ups that only require you to hold the button down, so it's not that much of an issue. But one key issue that I did find on this game is playing fighting games. I cannot do any special moves on this device, and I'll show that trying to play Street Fighter. So here we are playing Street Fighter. So I'm someone who used to play fighting games at a competitive level regionally around the Manchester area. So I'm very used to, you know, doing special moves. So what I've noticed playing this game, this device, I really struggle to do special moves. Shoryuken to me is almost impossible to come out. I have no idea why that is, but I'm someone that, you know, I'm very knowledgeable on my fighting games, and I just can't seem to do any special moves. The odd Hadouken does come out, the odd Tatsumaki does come out, but Shoryuken is extremely rare, and I have a feeling that it could be due to this whole, you know, hardware buffer issue. So I wouldn't recommend the S30 for fighting games, but those are the main issues that I've found with this device. I really struggle with fighting games, and the face buttons do have a hardware buffer that stops you from being able to have the input as fast as what you are actually pressing it. But other than that, the device has a lot to offer, and we'll go into that right in the next section, talking about the capabilities of this device. Right, I'm not going to bore you with the technical knowledge regarding this device when it comes to power and what it can emulate. But the perfect way to represent what it is like to play with this device is think of it being just in between an RG350 and an RG351P. Essentially, obviously the RG350 plays all the way to PlayStation 1. Now this one can play all that, including PlayStation 1, but with a little sprinkling of N64, Dreamcast and PSP, whereas the RG351 does a much better job at emulating N64, Dreamcast and PSP. And for the price, because currently it's available for £50 on Amazon UK and I believe $60, it's actually about the same price, and in some cases cheaper than an RG350, and for that reason it really makes this device very desirable if you're not into fighting games. So let's go ahead and try just a couple of the PSP, N64 and Dreamcast games that work on this device and that you wouldn't dream of necessarily playing on the RG350. So N64 emulation. I actually tested 7.5 gigs worth of games on this PocketGo S30, and what I found is for N64 it takes an awful long time to load games, and very few games actually work at a decent level. As you can see now, the screen is still black, but Zelda Ocarina of Time does work, pretty decent frame rate as well, but as you can see, it took an awful long time to start. As you can see, the title screen, no slowdowns, you know, it runs pretty smoothly. And as far as I'm concerned, I've not seen Ocarina of Time running this well on an RG350. If you know, have a video of it working, please do post in the comment section below. But as you can see, it's working pretty well, and this is a big win for me because Ocarina of Time is my favorite game of all time, and I'm not even joking. And being able to play it on a device that looks like a Super Nintendo controller, to me, is just magical. You know, the nostalgic feeling of holding this controller form factor coupled with playing Zelda is just amazing to me. And I'm going to actually admit this is fast replacing my RG350, as this will be my primary 8 and 16-bit device moving forward, with obviously a sprinkling of the N64 games that I do love. I mean, just look at that. I mean, the cutscene is running really well, you know, and for a $60 device, you just can't complain. It's freaking amazing, you know. So let's stop this and try other games. So for Dreamcast emulation, I thought we would do a little bit of a change compared to the whole, you know, using Sonic Adventure 2 to test every single Dreamcast emulator. As you can see, Crazy Taxi runs surprisingly well for such a low-powered device, especially in the main mode. As you can see, even the RGB10 Max, which is on an arcade 3326 chip, struggles with Crazy Taxi on normal mode. In the mode Crazy Box, it's not so bad because there's not that many cars around, but look, it's surprisingly running really well, you know, for such a low power device. Again, this is not as powerful as an arcade 3326, just a little bit more powerful than the RG350. And as you can see, Crazy Taxi runs perfectly well. So this is an absolute win for such a cheap £50 device. So let's try PSP Games and see what works. Another game I was excited to find out plays reasonably well on this device is the Pro Evolution Soccer series of football games. So yeah, it's pretty, you know, it runs really well. And again, I keep insisting, you know, you have to not expect much from these devices. So every single game from the PSP, Dreamcast or N64 library that plays well or okay on this device is really just a bonus, really, because at £50 you're basically purchasing something similar like an RG350, but with the added benefit of being able to play just a few of the other systems mentioned. So as you can see, it plays pretty well. So all in all, I will have to say that the PocketGo S30 is definitely much better than it was just a couple of months ago. You know, I'm absolutely terrible at this game. I've never been really good at football games, although I like them. A few slowdowns there, but yeah, you know, I think it's for £50. It's definitely an amazing device to have. I really love this design and the fact that it plays those games. So now let's do a recap of what we like and what we don't like about this device. So what do we like and dislike about the PocketGo S30? So first of all, it has to be the much improved build quality, notably the shoulders and trigger buttons being much better. We did the shake test, and as you can see, it really was quiet. We didn't have any components rattling inside the device, so that's definitely better than the version from 6 months ago. The second thing, and this has to be my favorite, is the design of the unit. You know, having it based on the Super Nintendo controller makes it really nostalgic. They didn't skimp out on the buttons, they feel great. The joystick is the same as a Nintendo Switch. The buttons feel really responsive and also true to the original Super Nintendo controller, so that's a massive plus. The screen, while it's not 4:3 aspect ratio, it's more of a 3:2, which is, in my opinion, a decent compromise, because retro games 8 and 16 bits, they still look pretty nice on this display, and you also have the advantage of having the screen being better suited for the Game Boy Advance games. Now, what we dislike about the PocketGo S30, the first thing, and it's probably the most important thing, has to be the hardware limitation that comes with the button inputs. It's underpowered because the Arcade 3326 already struggles a little bit with N64 and Dreamcast, so giving this device less power than an Arcade 3326 really makes the experience of N64, Dreamcast and PSP worse. Just as a summary, I'm not going to lie, this is replacing my RG350 for everything 8 and 16 bits, especially Nintendo retro consoles, so from NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, all the way to Game Boy Advance, all that kind of stuff, and a few of the Nintendo N64 games. So I'm looking at this device as my Nintendo retro collection, essentially. It's an absolutely great device, super cheap, and I highly recommend for anyone that grew up playing the Super Nintendo like me and who enjoys retro games. For £50 or about $60, you cannot go wrong. So that's it, guys. That's my review of the PocketGo S30. Let me know if you had the first batch or the second batch, and if you don't, if it's something that you're considering picking up. Thank you very much for watching my videos. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll be back with another video. Thank you.